The United States Navy operates in a dangerous world. Success and even survival depends on thousands of critical decisions made every day by sailors in all kinds of situations.
Successful decision-making is based on our core values of honor, courage, and commitment, and strategies that are shaped by training and experience. Making critical decisions at the right time takes moral courage and integrity.
And one critical decision that you might be called upon to make is responding to a potential suicide. It could mean the difference between life and death.
Suicide is both a national problem and a military problem. Suicidal thinking can affect anyone, civilian or military, active duty or reservist, young or old, rich or poor, male or female, officer or enlisted, overseas or stateside.
Typically, suicidal thinking is brought on by an underlying mental health problem, such as depression, anxiety, or substance abuse, combined with stressors such as relationship problems, legal problems, or financial problems.
Every day, people face these kinds of stressors with no thought of suicide. It's the underlying psychological problem that affects a person's thinking and judgment.
Suicidal thinking is not a normal response to stress, so it's important that we act to get help for suicidal people early, before it's too late. To do that, we need to be able to recognize some key risk factors for suicide.
Key risk factors are mental health problems, as we mentioned before, such as depression or alcohol abuse, suicidal thoughts, which are often hinted at or discussed with others, and a previous suicide attempt.
By being aware of these key risk factors and knowing how to respond, we can save a life. It's all about having a strategy for making the critical decision and knowing where to get help.
Alcohol abuse can cause serious problems all by itself. If you combine it with one of the stressors we mentioned earlier, such as financial difficulty, it can cause a rapid downward spiral that must be stopped early.
With PO3 Holden, he had a bit of a drinking problem, and then he hit some financial snags, and his problem went from bad to worse. I just finally had to step in and do something. It's a good thing I did. You're late again. This is the third time in 2 weeks. I can smell alcohol in your breath. I'm gonna have to put you on report.
Well, Creer, you do what you gotta do.
Is the problem with the credit card company getting worse? Look, let's talk about it. Maybe I can help.
Can you just let me alone, okay?
Don't go anywhere. I knew I had to do something, so I decided to get my chain of command involved right away. I decided to talk to my division officer. But it really started to worsen once he got behind on some credit card payments.
And one problem fed the other, I'm sure.
Yes, sir. It just started a downward spiral that's really gotten out of control. I think it's pretty serious.
If that's the case, I want you to take Holden to medical right now. If he has alcohol in his breath, he'll need a fitness for duty evaluation anyway.
Aye, aye, sir.
So you feel like you've gotten in way over your head. It didn't take me long to figure out what was going on with Holden. I mean, we see this kind of thing a lot. And what you have to be on the lookout for is whether or not the person is thinking about suicide. And you can't be shy about asking either.
Thanks. All right, tell me. How'd it go with Holden?
Well, you're right about him. His alcohol problem has really distorted his thinking to the point where he doesn't see any way out of his financial situation other than suicide. It's a good thing you brought him in when you did. The doc's evaluating him. He's gonna get the help he needs.
We caught the problem early and we acted on it. That was the key. Who knows what might have happened if we hadn't. I'm just glad that I knew enough to act.
Creer knew that Petty Officer Holden was in trouble because he knew the risk factors for suicide.
And as the first responder, he had the moral courage to act. He made the critical decision and informed his chain of command.
And Creer's division officer wasted no time in directing Creer to get Holden into the hands of the people who could help him.
Corpsman Radona also had the insight and the courage to ask a tough question. Are you thinking about suicide? But you don't have to be a corpsman to ask.
In fact, that's one of 7 important action steps you can take as a first responder. You can remember these steps by remembering aid life. Ask. Don't be afraid to ask, are you thinking of hurting yourself?
Intervene immediately.
Don't keep problems a secret.
Locate professional help.
Inform the chain of command.
Find someone to stay with the at-risk person.
And expedite. Act now.
There is no honor in suicide. It contradicts the Navy's core values and the leadership traits we believe in. But it's easy to fall into the trap of judging a person who seems suicidal.
Although there's no honor in suicide, there's no taboo against talking about the problem. As first responders, our job is not to assess the reason behind the problem, or to make any assumptions, or to judge the person at risk. Our job is to get the person help, whatever the reason for the problem.
Here's a situation in which it would have been very easy to sit in judgment and make wrong assumptions, with potentially tragic consequences.
Well, I had a problem with one of my petty officers. A third class named Carter, young woman, first time out at sea, kind of homesick. But I mean, who isn't their first time out, right? But it seemed that there was something different about this situation. Hey, Carter.
Hey, Petty Officer Drummond.
Some of the guys said you might be upset about something. What's up?
Well, I got problems back home. My boyfriend, he's breaking up with me. We were gonna get married. Then we got the order to ship out, and he wasn't really happy about that. But I figured he'd get over it.
But he didn't.
No, he didn't. Not by a long shot. I mean, we've known each other since high school. Now I can't sleep. I can't concentrate on my job. I can't do anything. I just want to...
You want to what?
I just want to make everything go away.
You thinking about suicide? Come on, Carter, let's go back to the shop. Come on, Carter, let's go. Come on, now. So I have someone with her right now, sir.
Does she seem depressed?
Well, I'm no expert, ma'am, but I think she was thinking about suicide.
Petty Officer Drummond, I don't think so. We've all seen this kind of thing before. You know, the kid who gets the Dear Jane letter. Carter was all the time griping about being deployed because she knew that her boyfriend would leave her if she was sent to sea. Carter just wants to get out of the Navy, that's all. She'll get over it.
I'm aware of situations in which somebody made that very same assumption. Let me just say that it didn't turn out well. Now, I really don't care what the reasons might be behind Carter's wanting to commit suicide. What we need to do is get her the help that she needs, right now.
I'll be happy to take her to medical.
Thanks, Chaplain. I knew that we could not just assume that Carter would somehow get over what was bothering her. Whenever somebody starts talking about suicide, boy, that is a red flag that needs to be addressed.
Carter needed help, so I helped her. It's as simple as that. Sometimes it's not easy. In fact, sometimes it's really hard, but I really believe in shipmates helping shipmates, no matter what.
Drummond didn't hesitate. She intervened immediately without making any assumptions or judgments.
She made the critical decision. She informed her chain of command and quite possibly saved a life.
Often, underlying emotional problems bring on a kind of temporary tunnel vision. To the at-risk person, suicide seems like the only solution.
But most people with suicidal thoughts don't really want to die. They just want relief from the pain of problems they think are unsolvable.
But they won't get better by themselves. They need immediate professional help. And it's the people who see them every day, family, friends, co-workers, who are in the best position to get them that help.
Suicide in the Navy reflects the problem in the general population, and family members of Navy personnel are just as susceptible to suicidal thoughts, especially teenagers.
You know, sometimes we have to be away from our families for a long period of time. And we don't always know what's going on back home. I have a teenage daughter, and I didn't know it, but she and her mother had been having some really bad arguments while I was gone. I'd been back in port about 2 weeks. I came home one night, and they were at each other's throats like two Dobermans.
No means no. I'm not going to argue about it. What I said, I said. That's it.
I'm so going.
I don't think so.
Mommy told me last week I could go. How can you say no now? It's not fair.
I said you could go if you had your English paper done. Have you finished?
All that's left is a bibliography.
Lydia!
That's all that's left.
Well, then you haven't finished it yet, then have you?
Mom, this is the biggest thing of the whole year. If you don't let me go...
Then what? What are you going to do?
I'll do it. I swear to God I'll do it.
She'll do what?
Oh, just kill herself, that's all.
What? Kill herself?
She started to say that whenever she doesn't get her way.
Since when? How many times has she said this?
I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 times before.
3 or 4 times she was hysterical. I've never seen her act this way.
Honey, it doesn't mean anything.
I think it does. We're going to the emergency room right now.
Okay, I think I'd like to talk to Lydia a little bit. Just Lydia. You can wait out here. Won't take long.
I have to tell you, Marie and I were anxious. I don't think she had realized how serious things were with Lydia, but I knew that teenage suicide is a bad problem.
Well, I think Lydia has settled down quite a bit. Why don't you come in? This is a list of some very good family therapists in the area. I think some counseling is in order here.
She needs counseling?
It might help if all 3 of you went together.
I agree. Whatever it takes. We're all still in counseling. We haven't solved all our problems by any means, but I am glad I acted when I did. I hate to think what might have happened if I hadn't.
Senior Chief Jenkins made a critical decision that took courage. He acted quickly to locate professional help for his daughter.
His action may not have been popular with his family, at least not at first, but very likely it saved a life.
One other concern you should be aware of is murder-suicide. Murder-suicide has specific risk factors associated with it. Usually both the murder and suicide are premeditated, and the suicide typically occurs within a week of the murder. The majority of murder-suicides are perpetrated by men, motivated by intense jealousy and fear of losing an important relationship. Often there is a history of domestic violence. Remember, as first responders, our job is not to assess the reason behind the problem, or to make any assumptions, or to judge the person at risk. Our job is to simply get the person help, whatever the problem. Make the critical decision, inform the chain of command, and quite possibly save a life.
It's important to know that just as there are risk factors for suicide, there are protective factors that can help keep people from reaching a suicidal crisis. Acceptance and support from others, handling problems before they escalate into crises, healthy lifestyles, good coping skills, a belief that it's okay to get help, spiritual support, and strong cultural and religious beliefs against suicide. By reducing risk factors and strengthening protective factors, we can help prevent problems that contribute to suicide.
And that means taking specific early actions to promote unit cohesion, camaraderie, and social support, becoming involved in the community life of the Navy, and working together to develop a sense of reward in serving the mission of your command.
These are complex and difficult problems, but professional help is available through Navy Medical. If any of our shipmates show signs of needing help, then we must immediately act to get them the help they need.
Remember, suicide is a real problem that affects everyone, but it can be addressed successfully. Lives can be saved by you.
Remember, aid life. Have the moral courage and integrity to make that critical decision. Take action. Intervene early and save lives.
Every day by sailors in all kinds of situations.
Successful decision-making is based on our core values of honor, courage, and commitment, and strategies that are shaped by training and experience. Making critical decisions at the right time takes moral courage and integrity.
And one critical decision that you might be called upon to make is responding to a potential suicide. It could mean the difference between life and death.
Suicide is both a national problem and a military problem. Suicidal thinking can affect anyone, civilian or military, active duty or reservist, young or old, rich or poor, male or female, officer or enlisted, overseas or stateside.
Typically, suicidal thinking is brought on by an underlying mental health problem, such as depression, anxiety, or substance abuse, combined with stressors such as relationship problems, legal problems, or financial problems.
Every day, people face these kinds of stressors with no thought of suicide. It's the underlying psychological problem that affects a person's thinking and judgment.
Suicidal thinking is not a normal response to stress, so it's important that we act to get help for suicidal people early, before it's too late. To do that, we need to be able to recognize some key risk factors for suicide.
Key risk factors are mental health problems, as we mentioned before, such as depression or alcohol abuse, suicidal thoughts, which are often hinted at or discussed with others, and a previous suicide attempt.
By being aware of these key risk factors and knowing how to respond, we can save The United States Navy operates in a dangerous world. Success and even survival depends on thousands of critical decisions made every